It all started on a quiet Tuesday morning when I opened my mailbox and found a letter with bold red letters screaming across the envelope. Final notice, eviction. My stomach dropped. I stood frozen on my driveway, gripping the paper so tightly my knuckles turned white. I hadn't missed a single payment on my mortgage. I hadn't broken any law. Yet the HOA was telling me my family had 10 days to vacate our own home. The letter was cold, calculated, and filled with legal jargon. But one sentence kept echoing in my mind like a death sentence. Failure to comply will result in seizure of property. My first thought was panic. My second thought was rage. And my third thought was something much darker. They didn't know about my plan. As I walked back inside, my wife's face paled when she saw the letter. Our kids were still asleep upstairs, unaware that our entire world was about to be ripped apart. I told her, "Don't worry, I've been preparing for this." She didn't understand, not yet, but I had been documenting every single violation, every shady practice, every power move the HOA board had tried to pull for years. I had folders of emails, voice recordings, surveillance footage, things they never thought anyone would collect. But that was just the surface of my secret plan. What they didn't know was that the very HOA trying to destroy me was sitting on a time bomb of their own corruption, and I was ready to light the fuse. But the story didn't start with the letter. The cracks had appeared long ago, little warnings most neighbors ignored. Strange fees with no explanation. Threatening letters for unapproved paint colors. One family had been fined for leaving their trash can out 10 minutes past the deadline. Another had been sued over a garden gnome. Everyone whispered about it, but no one fought back. They were afraid. And that's exactly how the HOA thrived. Fear. I wasn't like the others. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was madness. But I decided long ago I would never bow to them. And now, with this eviction letter in my hand, it was my chance to expose them once and for all. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I pulled out my files and laid them across the dining table like puzzle pieces. Years of documentation, evidence of embezzled funds, falsified votes, and secret deals with contractors who inflated costs while slipping kickbacks to certain board members. The deeper I dug, the darker it got. This wasn't just an HOA board flexing its power. This was organized theft disguised as community rules. And they thought I was just another homeowner too scared to fight back. They had no idea that I had already infiltrated their system in ways they couldn't imagine. Rehook. But the real twist came when I realized the eviction letter wasn't just about me. It was a cover-up. See, the letter was dated 3 days before the board meeting where they were supposed to approve a new budget. That budget contained line items that made no sense. $75,000 for landscaping adjustments, $42,000 for administrative consulting. These weren't random numbers. They were coded transactions, ways to siphon money under the radar. And I wasn't the only target. If they got rid of me, the loudest critic, they could push it through uncontested. Suddenly, my fight wasn't just about saving my home. It was about saving the entire neighborhood from being robbed blind. I needed allies, but trust was a dangerous game. Most neighbors avoided me, too afraid to be seen talking to me. But one night, while I was reviewing footage from my security cameras, I noticed a car pulling into my driveway. Out stepped Mr. Thompson, the quiet retiree who lived 2 houses down. He was shaking, his eyes darting nervously as he whispered, "They came after me too. I have proof." He handed me a flash drive, his hands trembling. Inside were documents showing the HOA president had forged signatures on multiple eviction notices. My jaw clenched. This was bigger than I thought. But Thompson looked terrified. "If they know I talked to you, I'm done for." Rehook. That was the moment I realized the HOA wasn't just corrupt. They were dangerous. Days passed, and the pressure mounted. The HOA sent inspectors to evaluate my property, snapping pictures of my house like vultures circling a dying animal. Cars I didn't recognize idled outside at night. One morning, my tires were slashed. My wife begged me to stop, to just let it go, but I couldn't. I wasn't fighting just for us anymore. I was fighting for everyone too scared to stand up. And yet, I could feel the walls closing in. They weren't going to let me win easily. Then came the board meeting. I walked into the community hall with my folder under my arm, the eviction letter in one hand and a USB stick in my pocket. The room was packed, neighbors whispering, the board sitting at the front table, smug and certain of their power. The president of the HOA, Mr. Caldwell, gave me a sly grin as if to say, "This is your last night in that house." But he didn't know what I was holding. When the floor opened for homeowner concerns, I stood, my voice steady but loud enough to silence the room. "I have evidence," I said, "and once you see it, you'll understand why they're trying to silence me." Gasps filled the room as I projected emails, financial reports, even video footage of board members taking envelopes from contractors in the parking lot. The board tried to shout me down, but the evidence was undeniable. Neighbors who had stayed silent for years now began shouting in anger, demanding answers. The atmosphere turned electric. Caldwell's face went pale, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Rehook. But just when I thought I had won, everything flipped upside down. As I was leaving the hall that night, feeling a surge of victory, two men in dark suits approached me. "Mr. Daniels," one said calmly, "we need to talk." They weren't from the HOA. They were federal investigators. My stomach twisted. They had been watching the HOA for months, tracking financial crimes that stretched far beyond our neighborhood. My evidence had blown the case wide open. But here's the twist. They didn't just want my help. They told me I had unknowingly stumbled into a money laundering operation that reached into city politics. And now, by exposing them, I had painted a massive target on my back. The next weeks were a blur of court filings, depositions, and tense nights where every creak of the house felt like a threat. Neighbors who once ignored me now looked to me as a leader, thanking me for exposing the rot. The eviction letter? It was shredded, declared null and void. The HOA board dissolved, several arrested. But victory came at a price. I couldn't shake the paranoia, the feeling that someone, somewhere, wanted me silenced. The federal agents promised protection, but I knew how deep corruption ran. And here's the final twist. Months later, I received another letter. Not from the HOA, they no longer existed. This one had no return address. Just one line typed in bold letters. "You may have won this battle, but the war has only begun."